Hello, my fellow adventurers! This is Mloentje, and welcome back to New World. Now that the main campaign is done, all the main campaign missions or the quests are done, we have some new things we need to look at, and one of those new things is, of course, this new GreatSword. Now, you might be wondering, why am I in yeah, something like that, cavern? It is here on the map because the boss right here actually drops this GreatSword, the named GreatSword, the practice blows. Now, it is a dexterity GreatSword with leeching, crosscut, and enchanted. It doesn't have any gem, but because it's a named item, you can basically do it to 625. Now, why am I going for this one? It's one of the easiest to get early game. Well, early when you start farming for the GreatSword, but also has leeching crosscut. And the final strike of crosscut heals you for 70% of the damage dealt, limit 1 trigger per ability use. It has a light and heavy attacks deal 9.5% more damage. And I also believe it has keenly empowered on it. Critical gain 15% in power for 5 seconds. So it's actually a really good GreatSword to got. Now I've been basically playing with GreatSword for a little while, just testing it out, and kind of wanted to give you my thoughts on the new weapon itself. My attributes, I'm going for 200 strength, 50 dexterity, 50 intellect, and 200 constitution. And I'm doing the highest crit I did so far was 6.7k that I actually saw. So those are actually pretty good crits, and it gives me the ability with 200 constitution in actual OPR, because I've been playing the GreatSword in OPR a little bit, to actually survive some fights. Now, why am I going strength and not dexterity? Because the GreatSword actually scales off of dexterity or strength. That in the strength tree, there's more beneficial perks, like the perks you get at 50, 100, 150, and 200, than there is in the dexterity tree. Now, we got at 50, we got damage to melee physical basic attacks, so that's already beneficial to the sword. Here we got chance to critical hits, and that's also one of the reasons why I still took the 50 dexterity and didn't went higher on the strength tree. Now, for the 100 perk, we got 5% damage to melee slashing and striking ability. Again, something that will benefit our GreatSword. Here we have thrust damage. Thrust, I don't believe the GreatSword actually does thrust damage. I don't think so. So getting the 5% damage to melee slashing and striking is definitely an increase that we get. 25% damage from melee weapon light attacks. So stamina damage that we get increased on our regular damage. If we look at the dexterity, dodges cost 10% less stamina. So we're not getting an increase in our actual damage. Again. And then the 201, 10% damage on stunned, slowed, or rooted enemies. Again, with the GreatSword, as we will see in a minute, we will be slowing the enemy or rooting the enemy if you take the right perks. So you are getting a 10% damage increase. With the dexterity, you got a 10% bonus to backstab and headshot damage. I don't think we're doing a lot of headshot damage or actually backstabbing. So the strength tree is just the better one out of the two. And if this dude would leave me alone, then I could continue speaking. Now, yeah, these guys are all here farming for this GreatSword. And it's actually also a good place, because if you can get a drop multiple times, because it's a 590 weapon, you can actually also increase its level, right? So right now I'm at 567. It's a 590, so you can actually increase it to, I think, 590 over here. And then you're gonna need to go somewhere else, I think a dungeon, to actually get it to 600 or do the Gypsum Cast. Gypsum Cast is also one of the means that I use to get this higher. And then one of the better ones, and I didn't really think about this, is actually using, well, not using, is actually opening the OPR caches, the PvP caches, because that can also contain 590 weapons, and it also contains the GreatSword, and every time you open it, and there's a GreatSword in it, it actually increases your level. And you can get really unlucky to actually get this sword from this dude over here, while OPR, if you play a little bit, you basically always get a cache. So that's actually, like, I find, and I didn't really, like I said, I didn't expect it, but I find that's gonna be the easiest way, that and chips and caches, to actually get this to 600 as fast as possible. Now, the weapon itself, why am I going for, well, a little bit about perks. Why am I going for intellect? Well, at 50, we get 10% damage to increase to backstab and random critical hits, meaning we get a 10% increased critical hit damage. boost. So we get 10% critical hit and a 10% critical damage hit. And then he had 200 constitution just to survive, guys. That's all why I'm using those perks. And like I said, I'm still getting like 6.7k highest crits that I saw so far. And this dude over here won't leave me alone. There we go. All right, let's talk about the weapon itself. So I've tried the Defiance 3, not really a fan, and I'm not a tank. So I'm gonna, well, simply just talk about the Onslaught 3. So it's pretty fun. On the Greatsword, we have like 2 trees, the Path of Onslaught, and we've got the Path of Defiance. Now, after using an ability in the Onslaught tree, enter the Onslaught stance for 10 seconds. An Onslaught stance has the following properties. Outgoing damage is increased by 15%, so 15% more damage as long as you are in the Onslaught, in the Onslaught stance. But also damage taken, so you are getting 15% more damage taken if you are in that stance. Which is like, it's a boost, but on the other hand, it brings down your survivability, right? And that's also one of the reasons I'm going with 200 con. The quick charge. Heavy attacks charge twice as fast, but consume 10 stamina each. So you can do faster heavy attacks, but you are gonna drain your stamina bar. Now, I do have to say, I have never drained my stamina bar while fighting with the Greatsword. For the perks, we've got Giant Slayer, increases the base attack damage by 20% when attacking foes above 90% health. I didn't take this one because, well, basically, if you hit an enemy once, it's already gonna be below the 90% threshold. And after that, this perk will do nothing. So I don't really find it a good perk to take. We got a Heavy Blade, though. Charged heavy attacks have 15% armor penetration. And you are gonna be focusing on your charged heavy attacks. So getting the 15% more armor penetration, definitely good. Swift Onslaught, gain 20% haste for 5 seconds after using any Onslaught 3 ability. I'm not sure, in PvP it might be useful to actually like make sure that you can or run away or actually chase the enemy that's running away from you to get a little bit more haste, right? To get a little bit more movement speed. But I didn't take it because there's way better perks to take. Now we got Keen Posture, and this is definitely one that everybody should take. After gaining Onslaught stance, your next attack within 5 seconds has a 100% increased critical hit chance. So every time you enter Onslaught stance, your next attack will always be a 100% crit rate. Like, it's always gonna be a crit. And as we read here, after using any ability in the Onslaught tree, you enter the Onslaught tree, the Onslaught stance. So every time we use an ability, we kind of refresh that timer on the Onslaught stance from 10 seconds. So every time you use an ability, you're always gonna make sure that your next attack is gonna be critical. And this is pretty huge for your damage. We got the Aggressive Shift, enter Onslaught stance by hitting with a charged heavy attack. So you kind of want to be in the Onslaught stance before you start using your abilities, because the Onslaught stance gives you that 15% increased damage. If you use your ability to go into the Onslaught stance, that ability that you use won't have the 15% increased damage. And that's kind of why you always want to start up a fight actually using a heavy charged attack, just to enter that Onslaught stance. Now, we've got Critical Combat, become energized by landing a critical hit, and regain 5 stamina and 5% base health per second per 5 seconds. For me, that's around a 320, 370 heal every second for 5 seconds. And it has a 10-second cooldown. And it gives us stamina regen, right? So again, we are using mainly our heavy attacks, but it consumes 10 stamina. With this one, we can basically get our stamina back a little bit. So it's kind of a, again, a beneficial and a beneficial perk that actually decreases our stamina taken. We got Crushed. Weak critical hit chances increased by 10% when attacking foes with an active debuff, as we will be placing debuffs on the enemy, and other players probably will be placing other debuffs on enemies. Your critical hit will always get 10% increase, so definitely a perk you want to take. And then for the final, well, not the final one, but the last small perk that we got, Step and Strike. After dodging, gain a 10% in power for the next 3 hits within 10 seconds. This effect only occurs when in combat. So you actually want to start your fight with a heavy attack to go into Onslaught stance, then do a dodge, and then actually start using your abilities. And every time you use an ability, you do a dodge, use an ability, do a dodge. You get that 100% critical rate, and you actually get your 10% empower on top of it. And that's basically how you empower yourself to get like high-end damage numbers with Onslaught, right? And for the last one, Unrelentless Onslaught. Hitting foes reduces your Greatsword cooldown. Light attacks 2%, charged heavy attacks 10%. The cooldown reduction only occurs once per attack. And this is also why we kind of want to have like only focus on those charged heavy attacks, right? It's also one of the reasons. 15% armor. We can actually get into the Onslaught stance. We can actually get, what was it here? Our base health back. We can get an empowerment. So yeah, heavy attack is the point, guys. Now for the abilities we've got in this Onslaught 3, we got the Relentless Rush. Dash through a foe while spinning and applying a 20% slow for 4 seconds on hit. The first hit is 110 weapon damage. The second hit is 120 weapon damage. This attack cannot backstab. Again, like I said before, why I'm using the strength tree and not the dexterity tree is the dexterity tree has the like backstab damage, but this attack cannot backstab, so we're not gaining any like increased damage from going into it. The dexterity. Enter the Onslaught stance when this ability ends. Now for the next perk, we got Relentless Power. Gain 10% in power for 10 seconds after using the, well, it's probably after using this ability, right? So again, 10% power on top of the 10% power when we actually do a dodge. I think it was, yeah, 10% power, so 20% in power that we get after doing a dodge and then attacking with Relentless Rush. Then we do have Adaptive Rush in Onslaught stance. Relentless Rush applies roots to the target. It hits for 1 second. So definitely good in PvP. In PvE, I don't really think the root is gonna actually make the difference. In Defiant stance, Relentless Rush heals for 15% of its damage. So yeah, this is also a perk that you can actually use in your Defiant stance, in the tanking stance, to actually heal yourself up for 15% of the damage that it does. And then for the final one, Relentless Refresh. Reduces the ability cooldown by 50% when you kill a foe. This effect has a 5% cooldown. So every time you kill a foe, the Relentless Rush will get a 50% cooldown. So you're going to be using this ability pretty often, actually. And it kind of looks like this, like a double swing that we do. You kind of do need to aim it. Like, I'm going to do a quick dodge here. Like, it has a wide spread, but if you just move forward while doing the spread, your second hit is gonna miss because you basically step out of the reach of your enemy. So you kind of gonna need it to actually like move. If you use it, you kind of need to go like in a circle when you use it. That way, both of the hits will actually hit. Now, for the next ability, we got the Crosscut. Slash 3 times in a quick sequence. The first hit is 110 weapon damage. The second hit is 130 weapon damage. The third hit is 160 weapon damage. Enter Onslaught stance when this ability ends. So again, guys, every time you use an ability, you refresh that timer of Onslaught stance for 10 seconds. And this is, yeah, keeping the rotation up, right? The next perk is gain grit while performing Crosscut. Grit prevents you from being staggered by incoming attacks. In Defiant stance, you gain stun immunity while performing Crosscut. So again, you can go into Defiant stance, use Crosscut, and then you basically cannot be stunned as well. So stun resistance, and then stagger resistance. Pretty interesting. Base damage of the final strike is increased by 100% if the target is below 50% health. So you do want to make sure that you use Crosscut when an enemy is below 50% health. In Onslaught stance, this threshold is increased to 75% instead. So 75% health while we are in the Onslaught stance. So you basically do a couple hits on it, make sure it's below 75%, and then bam, you are doing 100% increased damage, guys, which is pretty huge. And it kind of looks like this. So swing, and then an upper swing. Now, I don't know if the upper swing is actually doing headshot damage, because then it would actually benefit from the dexterity tree, as we talked about before. But I'm not really sure about that one. Now, with the weapon I'm using right now, Leeching Crosscut, the final strike of Crosscut heals you for 70% of the damage dealt. Limit by 1 trigger per ability use. So the final hit, the actual, like, overcut cross, I can get, like I said before, 6.7k crits on that ability. Meaning that I can get around a 3.5, 3.6k heal on myself. As you can see, it's a pretty, if we use like the heavy abilities, we are getting that back really fast. And that is actually like sustaining yourself in a fight. This saved my ass multiple times already from dying. Just being able to get that 70% heal off the final crosscut. And then for the final ability here in the Onslaught tree, we've got the Skyward Slash. Swing up in a brutal arc. Staggering your target, dealing 80% weapon damage and applying 2 stacks of 5% rend for 10 seconds. A max of 3 stacks. In Onslaught stance, apply 1 additional rend. Again, why you want to go into Onslaught stance before you use any of your abilities, because it's gonna give that 1 additional rend stack with a... You already have a max of 3 and you're already applying 2, so 1 additional stack gives you the max amount of step. When enter Onslaught stance when this ability ends, again refreshing your entire cooldown and actually giving you that 100% crit again. Like, the rotation on this weapon is so fun, and it is so really fun and nice to play with. The Skyfall Sword as the upgrade add a follow-up attack that deals 140% weapon damage by activating the skill again or using a light attack. And then for the last one, Sickening Slash. The first attack applies a disease which reduces healing by 20% for 10 seconds. The follow-up attack strikes all foes within a 3-meter radius. So this is actually becoming from a single target attack to actually an AoE attack. Kind of looks a little bit like this. And activate it again, bam, and you slam over it. And you create that radius. And as you can see, Keen again. We are in the Onslaught stance. We do an ability, Keen again with the 10% cooldown. Do an ability, bam, Keen again. Next hit will be critical hit again. And yeah, this goes over and over. You will keep remaining in the Onslaught stance. You will keep remaining, keeping those crits. And I have to say, from all the weapons I played with so far, I find this one like the most interesting one to play with. There we go. 4.7 was a kind of minor hit there. Let's see if this NPC can show up. Yeah, like I said, I really love this. I really love this weapon. I played with every weapon. I leveled every weapon. And so far, the GreatSword actually is the first weapon that I find like... This is something I would be playing DPS with. There he is, the Tsi Wang. And he's down. And he should actually drop this weapon. He also drops the Woodcutter's Pants. So if you want to go for the practice blows, guys, this is where you can get him. This is the NPC where you can get him from. And if you actually want to level it up to level 600 to get your gear score up faster, I would suggest playing OPR. OPR really is good. And do your daily chips and casts, right? Anyway, guys, I'm gonna wrap up this video here. I've got a lot of new stuff still to look into. So, like I said, let's wrap it up here. If you want to see more of my quest progression on my Let's Play here in New Worlds, just hit that subscribe button, guys. It would always help out a lot. I do hope you enjoyed this episode. If you do, just give it a thumbs up. It would always help in the YouTube search engine, of course. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye. You bastard.